So Patti, another exciting episode about crypto acceptance. This is our second one. One of our themes this year really is just talking about crypto acceptance. I thought this was very educational. I was really surprised by Verifone, and I think all of our listeners are going to be like, wait a minute, Verifone's doing what?
Right? Yeah. That was it, how when I first saw this, it was like, wow, talk about pivoting, right?
Exactly.
This is a big corporate pivot, and Jeremy is really, he knows a lot about crypto.
Yeah.
I was educated. I learned a lot of new stuff, and I know you did, and I'm sure our listeners will. And then I follow on with some trend reporting regarding crypto that I think people are going to find interesting, and I think it dovetails really well with what Jeremy was talking about. And I really loved your question from the field. Why don't you give us a little taste of that?
Yeah, so I just talk about telemarketing and the importance of the pivot. So I just talk about if you're telemarketing for yourself to schedule appointments, or you have appointment schedulers, if it's not giving you the results that you want, this little 5-minute spiel that I give will help you to dramatically improve in that area. We should also mention our podcast sponsor, of course, which is
Valor Paytech.
ccsalespro.com/Valor, VALOR, the leader in processor agnostic terminal and virtual terminal in the cash discounting space. So check them out, ccsalespro.com/VALOR. Ready, Patti?
Let's go.
Welcome to the Merchant Sales Podcast.
Well, folks, today we're speaking with Jeremy Belostock from Verifone. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing today?
I'm doing terrific. Thanks for inviting me, Patti. Great to see you.
Thanks for joining us. I recently interviewed Jeremy for some articles I was preparing on cryptocurrency for the Green Sheet, and I found it really enlightening, and so I invited him to join us on this podcast so that we could maybe dig a little deeper into how crypto is, becoming a new addition to the payment acceptance mix. But before we get started, Jeremy, we always like to learn a little bit about folks that we're interviewing. Can you give us a little of your background, what brought you to the payment space generally, Verifone in particular, and maybe your title is an interesting title, Head of Advanced Payment Methods. Maybe explain to us what that means.
Sure. Good questions. So advanced payment methods are traditionally payment methods that are being routed outside of traditional card rails. And why are they advanced? Because a lot of them are associated with mobile apps, and mobile apps can do so much more. You can do geolocalization, you can do targeted advertising. So again, much more than you can do with, say, your traditional card. When you've got an app, you've got a location, you know a consumer's background, you know their buying habits, things like that.
Sure. So just also to give us a little bit of background on how you got here.
Yeah, it's actually a long story, but I worked for a long time at Nokia where I was pioneering things like NFC payments.
Right, I noticed that in your bio, right.
And I worked on what was called at the time the Oyster phone, so having the London Underground's Oyster card on the phone so you could just tap. Now it seems like everybody does that, but at the time, we were the first
at the time,
it
was pretty neat, right?
And then obviously a lot has happened in the payment space, and Verifone moving to Verifone is moving from the consumer side to moving to the merchant side. And how do you enable merchants to take all sorts of exciting advanced payment methods?
Cool. So let's start by exploring consumer and business demand. There's been a lot of news over the past year about the card brands getting into crypto, new alliances between fintechs and crypto platforms. From where you stand, where do you see the demand for crypto payments coming from, consumers or merchants? And why is that? What are the and also if you could touch on maybe some of the verticals where this is, where you're seeing some of the more early adoption going on.
I will. If you take a look at from the merchant perspective and a Verifone perspective, what we see is if you go beyond crypto for a second, and we'll come back to crypto. So if you think about it, there are wallets like Alipay and WeChat that are very popular with Chinese consumers that are being used all over the world. There are the local peer-to-peer payments, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, things like that, as well as the whole buy now, pay later phenomenon.
Right.
And then you get to the crypto wallets. And what you see is that consumers in general trust those wallets. And fortunately or unfortunately, the pandemic has accelerated that trust of not wanting to not wanting to expose my card information, or being able to finance something that I need to finance in a different way, or younger consumers are more interested in. So Verifone's interest is to enable merchants to accept that whole gamut. And so now coming to your crypto question, you see that consumers now are interested in as well in buying, holding, and also spending cryptocurrencies. And so the merchant interest is, there's some of it that's curiosity. Hey, we want to let consumers know that we can accept cryptocurrencies because there's a lot of trends and a lot of things that are going on in that space. Elon Musk is tweeting and challenging companies like McDonald's to go in that space. And so to answer your other question about verticals, we see demand across all of the verticals. There are lots of, it could be movie theater chains that are interested in offering cryptocurrency, quick service restaurants that are interested in offering cryptocurrency. Again, in-store, online, in-app, as well as auto dealers, fashion retailers, jewelry. So it's across a whole spectrum of merchants where there's interest to enable and accept cryptocurrencies. And why? Because to your other point, consumers have their money in crypto wallets.
Yeah, and it seems like more and more. I mean, I think I saw, some statistics. I mean, there's always statistics every place, and as James will attest, I kind of glom onto statistics because I find them very interesting. But it's like consumer interest is really. I mean, it was sort of like at a lull before the COVID thing, and then with COVID, as the value of Bitcoin expanded, so did the interest among consumers in using things like Bitcoin to pay for things, right? I mean, I think as well
as the curiosity, where there was so much hype, people started to, whether it be through traditional crypto wallets or other wallets that are out there, consumers wanted to put their toe in the water and see what it meant to, what is a cryptocurrency? How does that work? What is a digital currency? And is that tied? Is it volatile? Is it not volatile? What happens if I try and move it?
Right.
What do the additional fees mean? So lots of questions, lots of things to understand and get your head around.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to also, before we got a little bit deeper, I wanted to get a point of clarification out, because I know sometimes I get confused about this, and if I am, I'm sure there are other people. Can you explain the difference between cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and stable coins, like US dollar coins, and which of these are most likely for payment acceptance?
So the answer to your last question is both.
Okay.
But the answer, so a stable coin is pegged to, say, USDC is pegged to the US dollar. So the volatility is that of the US dollar. If you have one USDC, you have the equivalent of one US dollar, and that doesn't change. Versus, say, your Bitcoin or your Ethereum, which are not tied to the US dollar and can float up and down based on consumer demand, consumer interest, and what's happening in the overall market. And for those people that are investing, if those investments become more or less lucrative than, say, energy and oil based on what's happening around the world.
So, but I guess I'm wondering, I mean, okay, so if the US dollar coin is pegged to the US dollar, then what's the difference between holding dollars and holding cryptocurrency?
Well, cryptocurrency may go up and down versus a stable coin is just going to stay at $1. So those
right. So okay, so I guess what's what I mean. Why hold a stable coin rather than just holding a bunch of dollars?
Maybe you're passionate about, it's an excellent question. Maybe you're passionate about digital currencies. Why do we need to have cash in our wallets? Why do we need to walk around with, and I'll cover the bank, why do I need to walk around with this that is essentially linked to my account? Why do I need a physical piece of plastic when I could have something on my phone and I'm just moving essentially digital currency? I have a bank account. I want to spend it somewhere. Why does it need to be cash? Why can it not be something that's purely digital? That's exciting. It could be something that you could spend not only in the US, but in another country. So cryptocurrencies are not linked to specific countries or specific currencies, unless of course they're the stable coins.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
James, do you have any questions in here?
Yeah, I want to dig in a little bit actually on that. So, obviously, as I'm sure you know, the stable coins were generally created for the crypto exchanges originally, so that they would have a way of some kind of exchange of value to be able to do these large crypto transactions. Are you actually starting to see the stable coins going more mainstream as far as acceptance? I mean, are consumers, businesses, are they actually like spending stable coins? Because my understanding is that was still kind of a future trend that wasn't really taking a lot of hold yet. It was mostly with the exchanges.
There is spend in stable coins. I think where we see the bigger spend is in the traditional cryptocurrencies.
Okay.
And that is because recently there were big winners or people that decided that they wanted to get out of the crypto space. And so they decided to spend. But also there are lots of enthusiasts that want to know what it means to buy Ethereum or another cryptocurrency and hold it and spend it and see what it's like. And maybe the stable coins are they may be more, in some cases, practical, but maybe less sexy, if that's
yeah,
fair.
I agree. I think it's kind of like the consumers that are really drawn to cryptocurrency right now are kind of drawn by the volatility in a way. It's almost like, hey, I can kind of like gamble and still spend, and it's a whole thing, right? And so stable coins are a bit too boring, I think, for that audience at the moment. But they have a lot more, I think. Like for instance, what's that one company? I forget the name of it now, but there's a startup, VC-backed startup that is doing stable coins for B2B payments and trying to develop that. I think there's maybe some legs to that.
I would see that, sure. It's interesting also, Jeremy. I have some younger friends and they're really big into crypto. And I was doing some transactions with one of these guys, and he's like, can't you just send me, you have a Coinbase wallet, why can't you just send me crypto? I'm like, because, why can't you send me Bitcoin? That's what he said. I said, because by the time I buy the Bitcoin and it's in my account, it may have lost like 10% of its value. I don't want to do that. And he said, oh, that's okay, Patti. Just go out and get US dollar coin. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's when I first started learning about stable coins, right? Because he likes the volatility. He thinks it's cool because he's going to make a killing someday on all these crypto assets. And I'm sort of like, I don't want to spend all that money and then have to go put more money in because Bitcoin took a huge hit today.
Well, so Jeremy, let's dig into the details a bit here. Practicality. Okay, so how do you see this playing out? I don't know if none of us has a crystal ball, but kind of timeline and acceptance and things. I mean, what are you seeing here? How is this going to play out over the next 12 to 24 months as it relates to, for our audience, what they care about is their brick and mortar and card not present merchants, more traditional merchant accounts. Is there going to be a lot of demand for crypto acceptance? Are we already seeing that? Like, give us a little idea of how you see this playing out.
So fair question. From a demand perspective, there's a lot of demand. From rollout perspective, it's still early days.
Right.
So merchants want to understand, okay, so if someone pays me with Bitcoin, what happens? Am I stuck with the volatility? Am I not stuck with the volatility? What does the consumer have to do? What do I have to do? And so the solution that we built a solution where essentially the consumer pays with their cryptocurrency, whether that be in store or online, and the merchant is then settled in local currency. So that's one of the first things that merchants are trying to get their head around, and they don't necessarily understand that. They think, oh, I accept crypto. And in some of the schemes, if you work directly with some of the wallets, you have to open up an account and you receive crypto. And if you're any sort of large merchant or any merchant at all, to Patti's point, you want to avoid some of that volatility. So I think that's where we are. We're in an educational and an evangelizational stage where merchants are looking to get, and we'll see this year, both large and small merchants will go live accepting cryptocurrency from native crypto wallets.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So talk to us about your partnership with BitPay. We saw some things in the news about how you were working together with BitPay. So talk about that a little bit. What was the rationale there? And also maybe along with that, could you help our audience understand the, relationship here? So everybody knows Verifone as like a kind of agnostic, terminal / technology provider. So like, how do they access this crypto acceptance? Maybe BitPay is part of that. So give us the lay of the land on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So Verifone has built in addition to its terminals, has an e-com business, but also has a whole cloud services business, of which e-com is one of them. Things like tokenization is another one. Advanced payments methods is also another cloud-based service that we have. So what happens is that allows us to take either e-com payments that are done by advanced payment methods or in-store payments as well. And so what we built with BitPay and the things that were key to us and where we felt we brought assets together was, one, having the reach to merchants both online and in-store and being able to deliver a solution. But more importantly, if you think about a cryptocurrency payment, you want to make sure it's secure, it's fast, and it's intuitive. And so we were able to come together based on the experience that Verifone has with online and in-store payments and other APMs on, hey, if I'm going to do a phone-based QR payment, how do I make sure that that's secure? How do I make sure that it's intuitive? And how do I make sure that it's fast? And what we built and what we're excited about is we surface up a QR code, consumer scans directly from their wallet. They see the fees, they say, okay, I want to send, and we get a message back that says, yep, this transaction's been confirmed. We pass that over to the merchant and they're done. So again, it's fast, it's secure, it's intuitive. And it's something that we both needed to combine our capabilities to build that solution.
And so to clarify there, in that structure, basically BitPay, for those maybe that don't understand, BitPay, I think right now is the largest cryptocurrency acceptor, I think.
Well,
but anyway,
right.
But so to make sure I understand this, you're saying the consumer would use, like BitPay has their own wallet. So they would use
they would use their BitPay wallet, they would use their blockchain wallet, they would use their MetaMask wallet, they would choose one of those wallets.
Right?
Oh, they can use any wallet. Okay, interesting. And then BitPay is one of these providers that does the whole kind of eliminating the volatility, right?
That's exactly right.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So a consumer comes in, they scan this QR code, they take the payment out in Bitcoin, the merchant, it's instantly converted to USD by BitPay, which takes the volatility out of it. And then the merchant's going to receive some kind of a deposit or a settlement in some way to receive the funds from that in US currency.
That's exactly right.
Cool. So I have one other question, a little bit off the wall here, kind of a little bit different than what we've been talking about. But, we keep seeing in the news about Visa and kind of how, Visa's into crypto. How exactly are they into crypto? Like, what are they doing and how does that relate to what you're doing?
So what I've seen from them is a lot of the crypto players are issuing cards that are linked to their wallets that are, when you spend with your card, you're getting rewards in crypto, which is interesting to some. And then in some cases, you're linking your crypto account, but essentially you're liquidating your crypto at some point and you're onto your card, again, your inanimate card, and you're spending that and in US dollars, and you essentially liquidated your crypto versus what we built, again, which is from the native wallet. I can see what I have in terms of crypto. I can see if at some point, hey, I decide I want to spend my Ethereum and the gas fees are really high. Maybe I don't want to spend my crypto. I haven't moved my crypto. I haven't liquidated my crypto at this point. I've still got full control on my app. So now if I decide, the gas fees are okay, I want to spend those, or the exchange fees are not that high right now, I'm going to go and spend, versus the card where once you've gone to spend with that, you've decided to liquidate it, you have little visibility of that position in the market, et cetera. Does that make sense? Yeah,
so they're actually going to use a physical card, and as they swipe that card, it's going to go and take that amount of money from a crypto asset.
Eventually, it will take it from a crypto asset, but it will be converted to USD, and then it will spend it.
And then it will
from
spend
a crypto asset.
So what you're saying is, in the case of like a Visa card, a Visa crypto card, I take my crypto card, I swipe it, and then that can, or do I actually have to convert my crypto to dollars before I swipe it?
Yes.
Okay.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That seems kind of inconvenient. I kind of thought it was like the idea of like you would swipe it and then it would like instantly convert your crypto. But I guess you'd have to kind of choose which crypto asset you wanted to convert.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I think what's interesting with some of these other examples, such as using the wallet, as Jeremy was talking about. There, you don't have to the conversion's on the back end. The consumer doesn't have to do the conversion, right?
So I think what you'll see that consumers will link their cards to a specific wallet. So they'll decide that they want to enter a specific currency. So what happens is, if you're going to spend and you're going to spend in real time, you have to know that the money is there. So even in the sense of what's happening in the crypto wallets that we have here, you have to have an account balance. You can't go and spend without having an account balance. So if you go and you try and spend and you don't have any crypto, it will say, sorry, but you don't have any crypto to make this purchase. So if you think about linking the card, you'll have to link the card in the same way you'd have to link it to a specific crypto to be able to spend from that and make sure you have it. Versus, say, a PayPal account, where a PayPal account, you could have a credit card as a funding source, you could have a bank account as a funding source. Obviously, they're going to check your bank account. But if you have it linked to a debit or a credit card, they'll just charge that card, versus, again, having an account balance. And that's sort of the big difference in this space.
So in this space, so what? Just so I can distill this and make sure I understand it and other people understand it. When you're using a crypto card, again, you have to do the conversion. The consumer does the conversion before they do the spend. When you're using a crypto wallet, the conversion is done on the back end.
So saying that you already, so the short answer to your question is yes, the conversion is done on the back end. That's right.
Okay.
And again, you make sure that you have the value stored.
Right, you have to have the value, of course. Yes. Okay. Cool. So I know that when I spoke with you a few weeks ago, you said that this offering was going to be widely available in the first quarter. Can you give me an update on that and let folks know when it might become available?
So we actually went live in production with in-store payments with crypto at the end of last year, so end of 2021. So we're now rolling out to merchants that are interested as we speak. So there'll be more news from that, but we're rolling out to merchants as we speak.
Okay. Cool.
I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused by that. When you say you are rolling it out to merchants as what? I'm a little confused. Are you saying like Verifone payment processing, like as the ISO, or you mean through ISO partners, or you mean through BitPay, or like who's customer?
Yeah, good. That's a really good question. So Verifone in the U.S. operates essentially as a payment facilitator. So we are out acquiring merchants directly for these services. So Verifone has I would say a very large enterprise franchise. So think about the quick serve restaurants, think about the big fashion brands, think about what they call big box. So we work directly with those merchants. And then we work with resellers to go after smaller merchants.
I understand. Okay, got it. So what you're saying is, and again, the larger merchants I totally get. So, your own processing company, Verifone has it. And again, a lot of people don't know that because again, that's more the larger merchants. So Verifone, through your payment processing arm as a PayFac, you're directly going after these larger merchants and offering them crypto acceptance. And then are you also making this available through your ISO channel resellers as well?
So yes, and we're speaking with, and we get several calls a week, which are, hey, we have customers who are interested in cryptocurrency. How do we bring this to them? There seems to be lots of interest. So we're having ongoing conversations with the ISO channels about how to bring this to market.
But you haven't brought it to market yet for the ISO channel.
Only because of how quickly we can get it out the door. Again, we're starting with some first large merchants and then working on how to bring it to the ISOs.
I think what a lot of people in our audience may not understand is the amount of, they think of crypto as this volatility and this uncertainty relative to the value. What they don't understand is the uncertainty and the volatility in terms of the underwriting process and the exchange and holding crypto and assets so that you can do real-time exchange. Like there is a lot that goes into like accepting, these accounts, and BitPay and these other providers really are not set up for these tiny merchants. And all of that to do all the underwriting and all of that, right? So I mean, I would imagine that's going into this consideration as well.
You've hit on some really good points, and the point is that and Patti was talking about before, like, hey, what is it going to take for us to get to mainstream? And what's going to get to mainstream is ubiquity. So that means that I can go into, and Elon Musk talked about McDonald's. I can go into McDonald's, but I can also go into the corner shop and I can see that I can continue to pay with my crypto wallet. And that's what, if it's, hey, that's an interesting thing, great. But the reason why BitPay wanted to partner with Verifone and Verifone wanted to partner with BitPay is our ability through ISO channels, through direct merchant contacts, is to build that ubiquity where consumers can see that they can spend their crypto at a number of different places. And that's what will drive the market.
And let me, from the merchant's perspective, I'm really interested in how the transaction fees compare to traditional card acceptance.
So I would say that they are competitive. They're similar, if not less. So if you think about, and what happens with a lot of mobile payments is you're authenticating with some sort of biometric. So it's impossible to say, hey, that wasn't me, especially if you have a 12-word phrase. If you gave up your 12-word phrase and you give your Face ID to somebody else, which you can't really do.
Which you can't really do, right?
Exactly. I think that's one of the things. So what happens is those fraud chargebacks go away, and in the traditional card schemes, those can be expensive, and if they get too high, then there are additional penalties. So overall, it turns out to be actually cheaper than accepting traditional payments.
Right. Okay. So Well, this is really interesting. This is really helpful. James, do you have any other questions before I sort of wrap it up here?
Not really. I guess I would still, I know you're going to get to this, Patty, but I mean, I guess I'm still kind of like call to action here. Like, so again, our audience is all the ISOs, the agents. I mean, like, what should they do? Because they're all going to listen to this and be like,
say, hey, how can I do this?
Yeah, I didn't realize Verifone did this, right? So like, what should they do? Is it time to like reach out to Verifone and say, we want to offer this? I'm guessing you're probably going to get to that next, but go ahead and tell us where should they go? What should they do to learn more about this?
So there's so they can go to verifone.com. There's a contact form, 1-800-Verifone, ask to talk to sales, and we'll route you in the right direction. But we're taking calls to talk to ISOs to figure out how we can drive this ubiquity. We're hugely excited.
I love it. That's great. And again, I think the only other question I had was just, again, kind of further clarification there. But I mean, I think this is really interesting for you guys too, because I mean, this is a little bit of a expansion on the relationship you've had with ISOs in the past, because I would assume that you're playing a pretty big role in the actual, I don't know if it should be called underwriting anymore, but this idea of like boarding these merchants, right? I mean, you're playing a big role in that. I know BitPay's the back end, but I mean, you're doing a lot of this front end, because I know BitPay doesn't have any interest in doing this with the small merchants, really. This is probably your deal, right?
It is. So this is part of the business that I built up as part of head of advanced payment methods, was our ability to go after merchants, onboard merchants and underwrite merchants for these type of services. And again, our big push is like, we want to help merchants with the Chinese wallets, with the buy now, pay later wallets, with the peer-to-peer wallets and the crypto wallets, and being able to provide that as sort of as a common platform and pick and choose what you want. But I have a question for you. What do you think is most exciting about this space? James, Patti, what do you think is the most exciting thing about
That's a great question. Yeah, I'll go first, Patti. I mean,
okay, go.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the thing that's really exciting about it right now is just the sizzle of it. In other words, as a merchant, accepting crypto is kind of like putting a big sign on your door that says, this is a store for young people. And so there's a lot of businesses that would benefit from that. And so even though, as we both know, I mean, the actual transaction volume is going to be negligible here for most of these merchants initially, maybe 1 out of every 200 transactions or something like that. But, just the idea, especially if you're maybe a college town or you're more of an urban area or a metro, it's like all of a sudden, you are a business that accepts crypto. I think you get a lot of free PR out of it as a merchant. I think you get a lot of free PR as an ISO. So I think right now it's a really sexy trend that you can go to market with that really sets you apart. The real question is going to be, if and when, how long is it going to be until it really has some legs in terms of producing some financial results, directly. But I think indirectly there's a big thing. So I'm excited about it right now, just because I think merchants should be accepting it. Just because of the, why would you not? It's like free basically to accept it, meaning it's free to set up to accept it. And the fees are negligible. And so that's my thought. Patti, what do you got?
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I kind of go back to that young friend of mine that I was talking about. He's one of these super tech savvy guys. He's been dealing in crypto since the beginning, and I know he's chomping at the bit to spend his crypto someplace, and I think that's where you're going to see pickup, but I don't think it's going to be, I think there's, segments outside of those very young people. I have friends my own age who are very keen on crypto. And I think that the merchant and the ISOs who get into this business first, are going to really be trailblazers. And that's what excites me. I go back real far. I go back to when ATMs weren't even called ATMs, okay? And debit was not used at the point of sale. So the notion that we've expanded so much, I mean, the fact that you can go to a point of sale now and do credit, debit, digital wallet, buy now, pay later. Oh, and you want to use your crypto? Sure. I mean, that just amazes me. And the idea that, originally I saw it mostly as for big ticket items, but the notion that it can be brought down market is what I find really exciting.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time today. Very, very insightful conversation here. And I have no doubt that a lot of our listeners are going to be reaching out to Verifone with some interest here.
Yeah, Jeremy, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk.
Likewise. Thank you. Great conversation. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So Patti, our sponsor for this episode, Valor Paytech, we alluded to it actually last week a little bit, talking about retention, about the customer feedback a little bit, but both of us really didn't dive into the details. Tell us what it actually is, this customer feedback.
Well, it's called engaged customer. I mean, and it like it sounds. It's really changing the conversation, I think, in terms of selling on customer loyalty versus selling on points, and there's all these customer engagement tools, the coolest one of which I think is the thumbs up, thumbs down rating system for the merchant, because it really gives the merchant some really, information it can really sink its teeth into in terms of adjusting service, adjusting staff, adjusting product and service offerings.
And just to clarify that, I think if I understand it correctly, this is also a way to grab text marketing funds, right?
Yes,
the idea
exactly.
is that, a consumer checks out and it prompts them to say, hey, get a text receipt. They put their phone number in, they get a text receipt, and on that text, they're able to click a link to say that they were happy with it or sad about it or whatever.
Or mediocre about it. And that is, gives the merchant instant feedback instead of having to worry about, why didn't James hasn't been in for his favorite latte in the last 3 weeks. I wonder why.
Right. And they look back at the engagement and see I had a bad experience. And then they could also send text marketing follow-ups to those numbers, which is adding that stickiness to it.
I think that stickiness, I think a lot of people, I notice in my own experience, a lot of merchants will ask me for my email address, but they never follow up.
No, they never do.
Yep. And this is an automated tool that allows them to follow up. And I think that a lot of people are going to find that, I think agents are going to find that as a real door opener.
Yeah, it's a door opener, and it's a door closer in terms of attrition. It keeps people from leaving. So I really love it. So go to ccsalespro.com/VALOR, ccsalespro.com/Valor. Sign up for a free demo. Talk to them about their solutions. I think you're going to love it.
And now, here is Questions from the Field with James Shepard.
All right, Patti. So today I want to talk about the telemarketing pivot. This came from a consulting conversation I had recently with a couple that I got to meet. And they have 3 different telemarketers that are reaching out and scheduling appointments for them or attempting to. And they're really kind of struggling with some of this. And so in this conversation, we were talking about a lot of different things. We creating a new script, thinking about things geographically, uploading the data to map anything so they could see it geographically and, things like that. But the 2 big takeaways, I'll share the first one, and then I'm going to talk about the pivot. So the first one is fundamentally understanding that when you have a telemarketer scheduling appointments for you, it's very important to realize that the higher the quality that you demand from that telemarketer as far as the quality of the lead, the more time you're going to waste. Because in order to get really high quality leads, they're going to have to call a lot of businesses, which means you're going to be driving all over creation.
Right.
So if I say I need confirmation the business owner is going to be there, they're going to have a credit card processing statement ready to hand me, and they're interested. Well, okay, I'm going to have 3 telemarketers full time. They're going to each get me 2 leads a day, and these leads are going to be 45 minutes apart. Right. So that's stupid. And it's a total waste of time. You're driving right by these businesses anyway. And I've never quite understood this idea of the quote unquote high quality telemarketing lead. I've had many telemarketers call for me for all kinds of different things. And ultimately what I have found is that what telemarketers think is a quality lead is not necessarily what I think is a quality lead.
Of course, because it's not their business.
Well, yeah. And normally it just means this is somebody who you were able to talk into saying some response that I asked you to get them to say.
Right.
It doesn't really mean anything. To me, a telemarketer is not supposed to give you this really high quality, super interested lead. A telemarketer is there to increase the number of contacts that you get, and to give you a little bit of a running start as you walk in the door. Hey, my assistant Bill called yesterday, that kind of thing.
Said you might be interested in doing this. Yeah.
Or even that, you would be here, that I could meet you, And so I think number one is understanding that. So again, when you're thinking about telemarketers, don't think in terms of high quality appointments. Instead, you want to really think more in terms of, just getting lots of leads. So that's number one. Then the other thing is the pivot. So once we understand that piece of it, we need to understand the importance of the pivot. So the pivot means when the telemarketer is on the phone with a prospect, if they do their job right, they're going to generate curiosity and interest from the prospect.
Sure.
Well, the result of curiosity and interest is generally going to be questions. Mm-hmm. So if a telemarketer has a good pitch, which, by the way, most have a horrible pitch that I've seen.
Oh yeah, I agree. I get those calls all the time, and I cringe.
Yes. If they actually have a good pitch, then they're going to generate a lot of curiosity, a lot of interest, and then people are going to ask questions. And what do you generally do? Like the natural response when someone asks you a question and you feel like you know the answer to that question, what do you normally do? Well, you answer it.
Pop up with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the number one mistake that people make when they have telemarketers, even when they're telemarketing for themselves. You cannot answer the question. And here's why.
Right.
Telemarketers who answer questions give the prospect just enough information to say no, but not enough information to say yes.
Yeah, sure.
So if we give them just a little bit of information and they're like, oh, so this is about payment processing. Okay, no, I'm not interested. Well, wait a minute. We didn't even talk about that it was a point of sale system or that it was cash discounting or whatever. And now they have just enough information to say no, but they don't have enough information to say yes. So instead, the telemarketer has to pivot. And they pivot to the appointment, which is actually the reason for the call in the first place. Mm-hmm. So, wow, what a great question, Susan. I'm so glad you asked that. I can tell that you and James are going to have a lot to talk about. Now, he's going to be out there tomorrow. Would 10 a.m. or 2 p.m., what would work better for you?
Right.
And then they persist. Well, before I meet with them, I kind of want to know, what it's about, So are you saying that you would eliminate the processing fees? Like, how exactly would you do that? Well, it's one of those programs that's just been so popular in the area and so many business owners are doing it. Now, again, I don't want to dive into all the details here because frankly, I might say the wrong thing. I'm James's assistant, so I wouldn't want to do that. But I know James will want to answer all your questions. Now, again, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure, like 2 p.m., 10 a.m., what would one of those work better for you? Are you going to be around?
Right.
You pivot. You got to pivot.
Just always pivot.
And people say, well, then maybe I'll lose an appointment. Yeah, you will. Right now, you're losing like 97% of them. With this approach, you're going to lose 40%. So, but you can be sure that if you answer their question, you're going to lose the appointment. So don't do that. So again, even when you're calling for yourself, it's very easy to get off track and to say, well, I'm the expert. So of course I'm going to answer the question.
I'm going to answer it. Sure. And then you're like depriving yourself of a reason to go.
Exactly. So when they say that, you say, I can tell you're really busy right now. The last thing I wanted to do is take 15, 20 minutes of your time to give some lengthy explanation. I'd rather let's plan a time to get together. Now, did you say tomorrow, like afternoon, morning? Like, is there a time that works better for you?
Right.
You've got to pivot to the appointment. So that's it. Very simple tip today. But if you're telemarketing for yourself or you have people telemarketing for you, number one, they should be generating curiosity and interest, which is questions. That's how you can tell. So the prospect should be asking questions and nobody should be answering them. Yes. If your prospects are asking questions and nobody is answering them, and instead they're pivoting to getting the appointment, you're going to get a lot of appointments, which means a lot of contacts, which is going to translate into a lot of sales.
Yeah, good advice, James. Thanks.
This is the Insider's Report with Patti Murphy.
So, James, following our interview with Jeremy, I thought I'd report on some recent crypto payments news that I came across.
Okay, great.
For example, as of mid-January, this was an interesting one. There were more than 5,000 different cryptocurrencies in digital circulation worldwide with a combined value of 2.2 trillion.
Wow, that's good.
Which is crazy. Now, this was another one I thought was interesting. I spoke, maybe a couple months ago about how Visa said that, was reporting its crypto card stats,
Okay, yep.
In the last quarter of in the first quarter of their 2022 fiscal year, which ended like December 31st, I believe, they had 2.5 billion in crypto-linked card payments that cleared through the network.
Wow.
That's up 60% over the quarter that ended June 30th. June 30th, they reported 1.5 billion in crypto payments. So that shows you just the consumer demand there.
Yeah.
And here's a little more on consumer. PaySafe did a survey of U.S. and U.K. consumers. and found that 1 in 10 had adopted crypto as a payment method since the outbreak of COVID-19.
Wow.
A separate survey of small businesses found 17% already accept crypto payments in some form, and 36% plan to accept crypto payments by the end of this year. This was something. This was another interesting one. FTI Consulting. They consulted a bunch of decision makers at large financial services companies, 11 billion or more in sales, and found that investments in blockchain or cryptocurrencies is a high priority, with average yearly spend of 176 million. Which, of course, when you're talking about businesses that big,
yeah, that's not that much.
It's not that much.
Right.
But here's the thing that I really found interesting, is that 8 in 10 of those people that FTI surveyed still struggle with distinguishing the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
And that's a big chasm there, because, basically blockchain is the underlying technology, right? It's a decentralized ledger that can be used in a lot of financial services applications.
Right.
Whereas cryptocurrency, is a medium of exchange that just uses blockchain. And if you're spending 176 million, you better know the difference.
Yeah.
So I have a few more things here I wanted to share, and I love this one, and it has to do with cryptocurrency crime.
Okay.
It's very rare as somebody in payments and banking to have crime stories, but losses to cryptocurrency crime in 2021 were a record high $14 billion, according to CryptoWatch. Now, these are thefts of cryptocurrencies as well as crimes like ransomware attacks, where crypto is the ransom. A New York couple was arrested by the FBI on February 8th for allegedly laundering cryptocurrency taken in the 2016 hack of the crypto exchange Bitfinex. That was the first big hack of a crypto platform when Bitcoin was pretty much the only game in town. And at the time, the stolen Bitcoin was valued at $71 million. Today, it's worth $4.5 billion, at least on February 8th it was. And the Justice Department said it had recovered about $3.5 billion of that stolen loot.
Good night. Wow,
and what they did is, apparently these guys were really patient. They sat on the crypto for several years, and then they started laundering small chunks through these complex financial transactions. They were budding entrepreneurs. One ran a consulting firm. I love this. She regularly contributed articles to Forbes and Inc. magazine on topics like how to protect your digital currency.
Wow.
And that's according to the New York Times, and the other was a coder. And our listeners and you and I will have an opportunity to learn more about this couple too, because within days of being arrested, Netflix announced that the couple and their alleged capers will be the subject of an upcoming docuseries.
Oh, of course.
Of course.
You can always count on Netflix to pay criminals a lot of money to tell their story.
I know. It blows my mind. I'm watching one right now. I don't know if you've heard. It's called Inventing Anna. It's about this woman who was a
I heard
con
about
artist. And it's like they made an 8-part series on this woman, and I was just reading.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, she made a bunch of money, but apparently most of that money is going to pay restitution to all of her victims.
Yeah. She got rich and realized that, wait a second, I got to pay people back. So
Yeah, for all that money I stole. Yeah.
Oh,
and in New York, they have a very strict law about not letting criminals profit off of their crimes.
Right.
Once they've been caught. So.
Right. Oh,
but anyway, interesting stuff. I just thought I'd share it with everybody in case you're not hyped up enough about crypto. Maybe this will help you.
The Crime and Mystery series by Patti Murphy. Thanks, Patti.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to the Merchant Sales Podcast. Whether you are an industry veteran, processing executive, or just trying to learn about the payment space, we appreciate your time. The Merchant Sales Podcast is a joint production of Greensheet.com and ccsalespro.com. and we hope you will tune in next week for more information and tips on building your merchant services business.